Well, here we are live on the Motley Croc Show once again. We are not here, but we're here. It's another pre-recorded show. My sister's here with me today, and she brought one of her friends on, Eddie Hill. I believe it's Paranormal Analytical, I think is. Am I saying that correct?
Paranormal Analytical.
Yep, Paranormal Analytical. I watched it tonight. It was a really, really cool show. My sister was on it. They were hitting some really good topics. So you guys should definitely go check that out. And so we'll link that up too in the bottom so you guys can check all of it out. Feel free to type all that stuff into Eddie, and I'll put it all up there, and I'll leave it up if you want to put your information in. And I'll just leave it up for that. And then we'll be taking on, we're not here, but we're here. So I will be seeing these comments. I just won't be able to answer them in person, but I will text them out. I will be once again at Halloween Horror Nights. I go on Sundays because it's just my release. I kind of go, you don't get that much time to go out and have fun where everything is spooky. So that's what we're doing now. So Eddie, it's been a pleasure to meet you. We were sitting in the green room a little bit talking shit, and I had a really good time doing that. And I think we should talk about some things tonight and really touch on some far out shit. What do you say?
I think so. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I appreciate you having me on.
Man, I appreciate you being here. I'm probably more appreciative. You got a great thing going. And when Brittany said tune in tonight, I was actually doing Halloween decorations. I run in the house. I'm like, okay, it's 9:00 my time there, Texas. Okay, I got to get on. And then I saw you guys all talking on there, and I saw you were bringing different people in. It was really cool. And there was your comments were there were some really interesting comments on there tonight. And one thing that I was interested in, I want to get your opinion on. I said that most people can only perceive the way they are. They cannot perceive the way it really is because of what they're taught, especially if you have deities. So I put that comment in. How do you feel about that? Like, how do you feel about, since you have so many different things about it, what's your opinion on all of that?
Well, you got to look at deities, or the amount of deities that are out there. There's a lot of different things that go on in the paranormal world that we don't understand. And the paranormal field, as you know, is we're constantly learning, and there's no set way to do anything. But you have to have a certain respect for the things that you are dealing with so that you don't get caught off guard. And I believe we were talking a little bit about this in reference to, say, alligators, crocs, or what have you, any type of animal or any type of situation that could put harm into you.
Correct.
If you don't have the respect to handle some of these things, you're going to end up getting hurt or put in a situation you're not going to want to be in or you can't get out of. And this is something that I think everybody needs to be aware of, because if you go into things like, say, paranormal investigations, and you don't have the respect for some of the things that you can't see, touch, feel, or smell that might be there, you could end up in a situation where you could end up with possessions. You could end up getting hurt, scratched, bit, whatever the case might be, or worse, or have something follow you and attach itself to you to where you can't get rid of it. And these are situations you don't want to be in. And I think this applies to just about every situation.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think that's you basically you've taken a paranormal and you've put it into the normal. So if you take a spirit and it has the attitude and the temper of a very aggressive crocodile, and you go in there and you do it, yeah, absolutely, you can really screw yourself up big time. Or even worse, be gone for good. And then what? You know what
exactly.
I mean?
And it's like I was telling you earlier, you do a very dangerous job handling a lot of these reptiles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I would not be good at this because, for one, I don't have the proper fear that it takes to be involved with handling something like that could put a hurting on me. I've got the respect for the animal. I totally respect it. But I don't have the fear that will help keep me safe and alive, because I could get, as you said earlier, complacent. And by doing that, I'm going to end up getting hurt. And I know I will. I'll, mess with the wrong one, and it only takes one time. And you're going to end up in a really bad situation.
You certainly are. And so, two things I'm going to touch on, because I know people are looking at me right now like, what in the fuck is going on with Troy right now with his horns?
Because he normally doesn't
it's
look
October
like
and I am converting into slaughter. So if you are watching, y'all are very familiar with slaughters. All of you have seen me. So that's what we're doing. So by the end of October, I'll be in full garb. So I'm kind of morphing right now. So I'm kind of feeling a little on the clown side, and then I feel a little bit back to normal. So that's why I look like that. And number two, I totally agree with what you're talking about, as well as when you said have a respect for something that could hurt you. My nephew is really good with animals, but one of the faults that he has is he does not have a lot of fear at all.
Yeah.
And so I don't let him work with our venomous animals because he's gonna contribute the same action that he would with something that's not venomous, where he can avoid a bite or maybe not, and then he dies. So I totally know where you're coming from, and I've seen it not only in real life and in the reptile world. Now I'm hearing about it in paranormal, and that's a very good spin to put on that, because you're so right about that. Like, you could really go in half cocked, and I think people bite off more than they can chew half the time, just because either they don't believe it or they kind of do.
Right. One of the things I found, though, dealing with the paranormal, is a lot of people that go into situations, and the non-believers, the ones that walk in and go, this is bullshit, nothing's going to happen. You have to understand that those are the ones, if something's going to happen or take place or something bad, it's going to happen to them. You don't have any, the way I look at it, you don't really have any you don't really have any people that don't believe. You have people that don't believe just yet, but they will.
Yeah.
Right.
They have no knowledge of it.
Yeah,
well, sure.
It's not if, it's when. Right, Brittany?
Yes, it's true.
Don't you think so? Like, what do you think of this, Brittany? It's hard for me, man, because listen, like I watching you and your friends or your co-hosts work and the way they speak, man, there's a professionalism, and that's important in this. And yes, you can make fun of anything and stuff, and people do. And I've always been into haunted houses and horror and Rob Zombie style. I like that. I've ever since I was a kid, I've always been a fan of Skeletor, and I grew up in the '80s when God forbid, dude, you had anything that had to do with Skeletor, because that was like the day of evangelism. So, oh my God, he's got a bad guy doll. He's going to hell. Throw water on him and burn some incense. So I went through all that. And a funny story is, because I know my mom's watching, I like Skeletor. He was like a badass. I don't know anybody who doesn't like Skeletor. Not yet, anyways. So, and he cracked jokes all the time, and he picked on all of his bad guys, So there's staff. And I actually have, it's over here. I can't grab it right now, but it's the Havoc staff. I have the movie prop Havoc staff from the He-Man movies. But so when I was a kid, I got the plastic one, and my mom saw it, and she read the box. I had already dressed up and playing around, and she goes, "Who wanted to be He-Man? I mean, come on." So I'm already playing around with my Havoc staff. I'm like shooting, and she reads it and says, "You can use this staff to conjure demons and fight the forces of good." She's like, "Bring that thing over here right now." And she stuck it back in the box, because they were young parents, man. Like, they didn't know. And that was like a big thing. And so, and I wasn't, it was, gosh, I was 44 years old by the time I was able to track down the Havoc staff in Germany on eBay from that year. And now I have it. It's in a shadow box in my movie.
That's way cool.
Because and I was telling a story. Mom was like, "Oh, well, I was just you're all mad." And I was trying to say, "No, Mom, I wasn't mad. It was a funny story." Like, she was like, "I'm sorry I took away all the bad guys in your life." But, but I was on that other side because I was always very open to things. So like, you couldn't tell me just one thing. Like, okay, your God's good, and this is a fat one, and this one over here does this, and I don't give a fuck. I just want to have a good time. So I kind of like got into everything on that aspect. I mean, that's how it went. So, man, when you talk about what we're talking about now, it's just so cool because the dark stuff gets me going. So if someone's like, "Listen, there's demons in there and stuff," I'm going to go. Not that I'm like, nothing's going to happen, but I want to be standing there and be like, "Holy shit, dude, do you feel that? Whoa," and it's that, wow, that really happened. And why not, man? Isn't that what the essence of life is? Pushing the limits. I mean,
well, we've dealt with demonic cases before, and we've had situations to where we were dealing with some really bad shit. And
yeah,
this stuff, I mean, a lot of us would have the same dream. I mean, it caused problems in between, members of the team. A lot of crazy shit happened, while we were dealing with a lot of these dark entities, if you will. Yeah. And we ended up trying to get a church across the street, which was a Baptist church, to go over there and do a blessing of this house. And it started out, to give you a little background, it was a 13-year-old girl that was having a dark entity, a shadow person, in her room, and it was throwing stuffed animals and all kinds of crazy shit, all night long, and it had her terrified. So
that's awful.
Her grandmother, who she lived with, called us, and we went over there, and we picked up about an 8-foot tall shadow person on some video. in a room that had no windows. It had 2 doors. It had one going into the kitchen, one coming from a living room. And the one from the living room was shut. The door going into the kitchen was like a French door, and it had curtains and everything. There was no shadows or anything. I mean, it was pitch black, and we were shooting with infrared light. And this shadow figure comes from the floor and kind of like starts weaving its way up. And there was a lazy boy chair up against a wall. And when the shadow figure went in front of that chair, it blocked the chair off completely and went up to the ceiling. Well, in the ceiling where it went up and went through, I was in the 13-year-old girl's room, and I was sitting on the edge of her bed, and I had a camera on me, and I was telling this thing, I was like, you like messing with little kids? Come mess with me. I dare you. I was sitting there poking at it, trying to get some sort of reaction, because at the time I didn't realize what I was dealing with. And so I'm sitting there trying to get a reaction. But when we played the tape back, at the same time, on the timestamp of that dark shadow going up into the ceiling and into the room where I was at, you hear a voice come in, and it is, I'm like, you like messing with little girls, come mess with me. And you hear a voice, I'm so scared. Like, what are you going to do? And it's like, yeah, what was I going to do? But I didn't see or feel anything at the time. Excuse me, when that happened. So I was trying to get this church across the street to go do a blessing. And I got into an argument over there with the pastor of the church, because when I asked him to go across the street, which was literally, 100 yards from where his little chapel was, he basically told me in a nice way to get bent, and he wasn't going over there. Bent. And I told him, I was like, that's, a crock of shit. You're actually leading a congregation, but you don't have the cojones to go across the street over here. I was like, and bless the house. I was like, that's bullshit. And
well, that blessing would have been no good.
I got a hold of John Zaffis.
Zaffis! Oh, I love Zaffis!
I told Zaffis, I was like, this is what we got, blah, blah, blah. He said, send me what you got. So I sent him everything I had, and I was on duty. I was on patrol. I was a police officer. And I'm driving around, phone rings, and it was John. And I said, hey, what's going on? He goes, I looked at everything you got. He said, you're dealing with a demonic entity there. And I was like, okay. I was like, so what do I need to do? He goes, you're going to have to get a hold of the church. I was like, fine. We can do that.
Yeah.
So that's how I got involved with that Baptist church. But he told me, he said, when you get done with this case, you're going to look at religion in a totally different light. And I asked him, I was like, why do you say that? He said, because they're not going to be as prone to help as you think that they should be. And he was right. And it took forever to get any sort of help over there. But make a long story short, this continued for a while. We went back several different times, and things quieted down. They kept coming back. Coming to find out, Grandma was calling this thing back each and every time with the Ouija board. The little girl at one point in time told me, she goes, stop coming over. It's not doing any good. Grandma keeps calling this thing back. So there's nothing you can do. And so what I ended up doing is I ended up getting a hold of her parents, who had left her there with Grandma, and Grandma was basically taking care of her. And I told them, I said, look, either you go and you get your daughter, I said, or I'm going to intervene in a law enforcement type status. I said, we're going to take care of the situation one way or another. I said, but she's not staying there. And they did. Thankfully. Wow. It was a bad situation.
Yeah.
So what was Grandma doing that for? What was the story? I mean, I love the story. Look, I'm into it. What was she? Why was she bringing it back? Why was Grandma doing that?
Well, according to the girl, she said that Grandma was doing it because she enjoyed the attention. She enjoyed
Munchausen
showing up,
like Munchausen and the supernatural
limelight. She liked the limelight.
Oh no!
And I collect Ouija boards, so I don't sit and play them every night. But man, I found them as far back as the late '50s, and they just want so much money for them. But I have a bunch of them. I get a kick out of them.
I think they're cool.
They're like sporadically. I do too. Brittany doesn't like them.
But you can use them in a way which is not beneficial, if you follow me. And anybody who tells you, here's the thing with those. I mean, and you got to understand that Ouija boards are just a tool. There's nothing bad about a Ouija board. It's a tool. It's like carrying around your recorder, but your recorder is a tool. But when you use it to collect EVPs, what are you actually using it for? You're using it to communicate with the other side. Same thing that you're doing with the Ouija board. But for some reason, the Ouija board got a stigmata attached to it that says that it's a bad thing. Well, it's no worse than anything else you use. It's just how you use it. Now, the problem with all this stuff is you get people go, oh, well, I can control what comes through. No, you can't. And people go, oh, yes, I can. I can feel. No, you can't control what comes through a Ouija board or anything else for that matter, because you can't see it.
Right.
You can't see
I
it.
agree.
You can't control the opening.
There's some truth to that, man, for sure.
And lie. And these things lie.
Yep.
You know?
I totally understand where you're coming from. I totally agree. Like, I think that you could definitely do that. I was talking with our mother about that too. You could bring something in and it's going to take any face it needs, you know, for comforting. Because, I mean, I would. If I needed something and I'm on the other side, I'm going to come through whatever you need so I can get what I need. I mean, you have to understand. I look at things like behavioral and motive in animals, so I'm going to look at the same thing with spirits. It's like, you know, that's why it's very, sometimes, you know, like I'm you know, you can listen to a lot of different people talk. You have, I'm sure, Eddie, you've heard a lot of people tell stories.
Oh.
And I'm sure now, from when you started to now, you know, like, okay, Slick, we know you're just you know, you asked a question I should have never fucking asked. You know what I mean? Like, come on, dummy. So I get that all the time, even when it comes to paranormal or it comes to animals, and like, or they'll tell you the story and you're like, yeah, okay. So I don't know what my infatuation with Ouija boards is. I've always liked it, probably because I was told I couldn't have one because, you know, it was a tool of the devil. And, you know, evangelists were like, well, I threw it in the fire and it bounced out and screamed. And you're like, fuck, I'm going to go buy one now and throw it in the fire. It's going to jump out and scream. You get all your friends around, dude. And they're like,
to go get one, you know?
Yeah,
and then you throw it in the fire and it burns. And you're like, what the fuck? And they're like, oh, you lied to me, man. You're like 10 years old. It's like, stand by me. You're an asshole. You lied, knew it. But, you know, but back then they believed that. And so, like, you know, we had baby boomer parents and they were young and they saw a lot of that. And there was a lot of fear. And I think religion when I was a kid was creating fear. Just fear. Can't do that. You're going to die. Can't do that. You go to hell. You say the F word, you're going to burn to death. Don't even think about having sex with that girl. You're going to hell. That's how I grew up. Now, Brittany grew up in a different era because she's a lot younger than me. And we had already, you know, we'd already torn down the Berlin Wall. But when I was a kid, Motley Crue, which is hence the Motley Crue Show, one of my favorite bands. They were just a rebel band, but they were considered metal but glam, and they just did it all. And so they said, well, we'll just throw a pentagram on the album and we'll go platinum. And that's exactly what they did because of the way the Idiots were acting at the time. Not that they were. They never sang a song about, you know, sacrificing and all that kind of stuff. So they did that, and then everybody goes out and buys all the albums and burn them, and Iron Man goes, that's cool. Let's write a song called Holy Smoke.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I mean, that's the era we grew up in. So the stigmata was attached to the Ouija board the same as it was heavy metal music.
Right.
I mean, come on. And so because we liked it and you couldn't control us, oh, it's of the devil and you're all going to die. We're going to get rid of it. Think about it, man. It was always a control thing.
Oh, God. I drew a pentagram one time on one of those book covers, you know, when I was in high school. And I had a book cover and I drew a pentagram. You know, and the thing was, I hardly ever carried a book. But when I did, I'd draw all over the damn thing. So, you know, I had the paper covering and I drew a pentagram. A teacher came over, sent me to the office.
Yep.
And they called my parents. He's a devil worshiper. Huh? No, I'm not. I just thought it was cool. It was.
Oh my
yeah, it's so
gosh.
interesting to me, man, because the origins of the pentagram have nothing to do with what the 1980s metal band made it. Not even in the least.
No, not
Here's
at all.
another thing. So I have this thing called the haunted hallway. So when you go up in my hallway, I've got like the you know, there's a cut-in in the wall, and there's Baphomet. He's up there. He's a big statue, and I've got, man, everything. I've got candelabras, and then there's a couple upside down crosses, and there's some right side up crosses too. And then everybody's like, well, I can't believe you put that devil stuff. It has nothing to do with the devil. It was actually an honor to Christ. If you know about being a Christian, you should understand that Peter wanted his cross upside down because he wasn't worthy of Christ. That's where it originated. So, but it got turned into an album cover for like Skinny Puppy or something, and then all of a sudden it was Satanism, and everybody turned it down.
Speaking of which, that reminds me, there was an album cover. I can't remember who it was, but it had one cross in the center, right side up, and it had, I think, 3 crosses on each side upside down. I don't remember what that one was.
Well, we're gonna look that now. Now you got me on it. Now we're gonna be on like this scavenger hunt.
He's gonna be searching for this now.
Upside down, because that's what it was. It was like, we're not, you know, I'm not worthy of God. So, but you know, in all the movies, they would twist it into The Exorcist or whatever, that it was this terrible thing. It was the sign of the devil. It had nothing to do with that. And I mean, right now, the way I look right now is going to trigger somebody, and they're going to be like, Troy, you're such a. I already know, and so if you watch any of my releases when you start following me when I promote the show, I always throw some devil shit on there because it just fires everybody up. I do it for the same reason they did it back in the day.
Well, the next thing you got to do is bite the head off a bat. So
I will.
Oh,
I'm gonna make a jellyfill bat. He's talking Ozzy Osbourne. That was some cool shit back in the day, Brittany.
Look at Britt.
I remember when it happened. They shut school down. Can you imagine if we had this? This was like, it was like 82 or 83. Serious. We were in grade school at the time, and I remember it happening. And all the kids were talking because you got to remember, man. It was like it was like big hair and there were jocks and everybody else was metalhead. And we all had long hair. And we didn't care. Oh my god! Oh my god! I tell everybody that. Like they'll be like, "Oh man, when you're old," and I'm like, "But I've seen all the cool bands. You haven't. So that shirt you're wearing, you didn't even know what you're wearing."
I even had hair back then. To be honest with you, that was really cool.
It was. That's all right, bro. Hey, listen. Let me tell you something.
You're like, and it was really cool.
But listen. Kerry King from Slayer, man, that dude right there. That dude comes out, his head's all tattooed. That dude. Then that guy can write some lyrics. Tom Araya, all those guys. That band's one of my favorite. That is my favorite band, Slayer. I always liked them because I always tell Brittany they stayed true to who they were from the beginning. To 2 years ago when they released the last album, they sound the same and they never veered from things. But I watched them talk on an interview about paranormal experiences and religion, and believe it or not, Tom Araya is a big fan of Jesus and Christianity and the teachings of him. And so his songs were really misconstrued. So when this kid was interviewing, and there's this teenager who's really into rock, he's like, "What do you think of this?" And he goes, "Man, I'm not going to tell you what I think of the world really is, but I'll tell you what I think God wants and why I wrote this song and why I said what I said in it." And if you go back to the Angel of Death and In the Abyss, when they were taking the albums and burning them, he was actually talking about other like Angel of Death was about Auschwitz and what Hitler had did to those poor people.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about what they went through because nobody was talking about it. Everything's always swept under the rug. They torture them, but they actually told about what they do, sewing them together in liquid and nitrogen and all kinds of shit. And it was in the song, but it got controversy, but he was actually writing it for other reasons. And to watch him talk about that to this day, man, why couldn't you said that when we were younger? You made it so hard on us, man. But they were selling albums. So we were on the frontier.
Yeah. There's another band called Tiamat.
I've heard of them.
Yeah. They're really good. And you ought to see some of the lyrics that they write. That's pretty interesting.
I definitely will look into it. I like reading that at night. I'll lay up, I'll light up, smoke some weed, and I'll be reading shit like, wow,
heck yeah.
Man, that's just so deep, bro. That's so deep. I was smoking a little bit before he started. I'm going to cut up. But he's like, don't do too much. He'd be like this. What? I don't get that.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, I don't get that bad, man. But I really believe it, and I'm an avid believer that marijuana is a very good thing. Especially now. Listen, when I say this, I mean microdosing it. When you want to do an investigation and you want to take that edge and sharpen your mind, man, let me tell you, there's certain strands of marijuana you can smoke, and you are so sharp and keen on what you're doing that I think you're nothing distracts you. And a lot of times that's why I'll do it.
To sleep.
Yeah, that's because yeah, because I'm already hyperactive, so I'm an indica guy. So you would need to smoke some sativa, and then you can.
Yeah, because if not, I'll just pass out.
Dude, if I smoke sativa, it's like brown whiskey. I'll be fighting everybody and probably get my ass kicked and put to bed myself. So either way, I'll end up in bed. But yeah, so there's a lot to it, man. And I think that's, there's so much to it. That's what got me started in all the, because it made me curious. Why are they talking about darkness and demons and, so you start reading about, you really look into it and you really start. Then when you start to get wiser, they're like, well, only God can answer that. You need to get back in class. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Like, oh, I got you now.
It's just like, how Halloween got started and El Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, and all these other different holidays and things of that nature. I mean, you got to look back at how, in the roots of things and how all this stuff actually started. And what it is today wasn't what it was when it started. None of it. I
know. It's all been twisted. I totally get it. Yeah. I totally agree with that. No, it's finally, man, somebody's got some sense. Seriously, because I get in arguments with all these people, and it's so easy how people are so easily led. You know what I mean? And there's so much in the world now where people are just easily led from one thing to the next,
Well, there's something too that I wanted to touch on when we were talking about the tool, like you said, Eddie, where you're 100% correct on how you use it. And a lot of people don't understand when you hear the word portal, like that word that gets brought and tossed around quite a bit. And I learned through research and hearing a couple priests actually, like in Catholicism, who talked about even a cup could be a portal if you allow it to be. Anything that you possess, that you conjure and talk and want it to come through, it is considered a portal. So absolutely. It's always fascinating to me that people are like, oh, I think this ground is a portal. Well, it might be a portal. It depends on what happened at this site, at this sacred site, and what was done to this site. But you could be at your desk and you could conjure to your phone. That could be a portal. So it's really interesting.
Absolutely. And, one of the things like people, I've seen actually investigations where people have used, I don't know if you all do, but we use two-way radios a lot.
Mm-hmm. I do.
You can actually have EVPs and things of that nature come through on these radios.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now there's other things that one other thing I want to bring up. I don't remember what it was called, but I think it was back in the, I say 70s. There were some college students that all got together and they were working on trying to see if they were able to manifest a spirit. Not a spirit per se that might be there, but using their minds create this spirit, create this entity. And they had, do you know what I'm talking about, Brittany?
I do, because it spawned into like a bunch of stuff. I don't remember the name of it, but it spawned into that what's the name of that creature?
But there was a doll that they used, and they all sat around like they were doing a seance, and they held hands, and they did nothing but they named it. They named the doll.
Yeah.
They were all put their energy into this doll and into this doll. And they would do it all the time. And until this doll actually took, it actually became, I guess, like their conduit. It became their portal. And they started creating all this entity, which actually started, I guess it was just, associating itself with each one in different ways. It would follow them. It would follow them home. Different things would start happening, but it was their idea behind all this is that the human mind can create its own entity per se. Mm-hmm. But I don't remember what the experiment was called.
I don't remember either, but it went on, and I remember there was other people, and oh God, this is going to bother me now. Because they went on and they created this other creature that we have now. And you've seen it, Eddie, the white one, that white creature. They said that was created from the mind. Right. Just as much as Slender Man, they said that was created from the mind as well. Mm-hmm. So, but it did originate with that story. And then people started doing it again and again and again. It literally manifested
it created its own life.
Oh, it's going to bug me now. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, so there's a lot of stuff like this. And it just, I guess, your willing something to happen, willing something to take place. Like a lot of people say, well, if you want to be rich or if you want this and this to happen, you have to just ask the universe. Mm-hmm. Well, that's basically what they were doing, is they were creating this with their own will. It was their will for this thing to take on its own life, to be a part of this world.
Robert the Doll kind of had a similar story.
Right. Robert the Doll, he was something similar, but he supposedly had his own spirit, which was attached to him.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like
I think he's still over there in that house in the Keys, isn't he?
He is.
He's in the museum now in the Keys.
Museum?
Yeah, they have him in a glass casing.
You know what's interesting, and I just thought about this because you mentioned that. Have you ever been down to the Keys or anything like that, Eddie? Have you ever been down there? Okay. When you drive down towards it, you have to go through like Florida City. There's a place called Robert Was Here.
Yeah.
It's like a place where you can go get like, Cocoa Frios, which for those of you who don't know, it's like a really cold coconut. And they stick a straw down, you drink the fresh water out of them. They do it all the time, Cocoa Frios. But you can get like, there's animals there and food and all that. I just wonder if that was Robert the Doll at that location and then moved, or why does he call it Robert Was Here? I've always wondered that because it's right where you get to the Keys. I don't know the history of that place. For those of you guys there are people that follow me from South Florida. If you know about that, I'd like to know the story behind Robert Was Here. But yeah, I think that doll is in the Keys. And man, there's some neat stuff. And I there's some, and St. Augustine, bro. Well, I was telling Brittany, I'm a big fan of New Orleans. And I like the voodoo side of that. I really like going in and talking to those. I love the shrines. When you go in the back and they're like sitting in their chair like this, and they're like,
been there many times.
Even if it's acting, that's still cool. I love it there, man. I don't know what it is about New Orleans. God, dude, I love the architect of the house, everything. I love it.
I can answer that question for you. It's the hurricanes. I'm not talking the weather.
You're talking about all the differences of the supernatural there.
Correct? No, I'm talking about the hurricane itself. It comes in a bucket.
The drink.
Oh, I know what you. Oh my God! Yes, the big. I know what you mean now. I thought you were like it was just like the hurricanes of supernatural because there's so much
that
of
too,
it there.
though.
Because you got to remember when the hurricanes hit, all those cemeteries washed out. They had coffins and bones everywhere and didn't know what to do. And by the time the water went down, there were people already skeletons in their house. They didn't even know who they were. Unbelievable.
This place was that old blacksmith shop. That's
what was that?
Have you ever been to it? It's a
in
bar,
New Orleans? No.
Blacksmith shop.
Nope, I've never been to that one.
Man, it's the oldest running blacksmith shop in the United States. I think it's been running since like 1600 and something.
I'm going.
But it's old as hell. I think the main part of it's still just a fireplace, but it's a bar. And they've got the best hurricanes in there, but it's supposed to be haunted.
I want to go there and check it out. I mean, there were some
I think a lot of places in New Orleans is haunted.
There's so much about New Orleans, and I know that Eddie will appreciate this too. But the creatures that are in the bayou and their history, it honestly freaks me out.
The Rougarou.
Yes. The Rougarou, yeah. And it makes me want to go out into the woods and then the swamps and the bayous, but it also makes me not want to go out there at all. I think somewhere I actually have that, and I can read a little tidbit of one of the legends from there. Let me find it. Hold.
Yeah, we are actually going to be going to Louisiana and to the bayou and to, I think it's going to be south of New Orleans, actually. Some of these places, and there's going to be some places north of New Orleans as well too, where we're going to be filming a show called The Deadly Dogman and Hunt for the Lycanthrope, which is basically a werewolf.
That's awesome.
And we're going to be working on that show, and we're going to be looking for and talking to people who have had experiences, who have actually come across this Rougarou, which is what the Cajun call this werewolf creature.
Yeah, I've watched a whole thing on it. I love it.
It's very interesting, and and according to the folklore from over there, the Rougarou is actually created from it's a spell that's given to you from a lot of the, I guess, the witches of the bayou. A lot of different type. I think it was a person who had done something bad, and then a voodoo priest or priestess put a spell on you, which turned you into this creature. And there was a way that you had to, or something you had to do in order to get rid of that spell. Did you find it, Brittany?
I did. Sorry. I'm listening to you too. So I'm listening to, sorry. I was all excited because I also found another story.
Hold on.
It's, so like these two topics, these are two, and Eddie will appreciate, Troy, you're going to really appreciate the one. But these two topics, and I'm going to preference this so everybody knows, this is exactly how it's written online. And this is true, like, legend of Louisiana, like New Orleans. Okay. So just so that I'm preferencing because of some of the wording in what is written online. So the first one is the story of kind of like the Louisiana Jungle Book. According to Native American legends, there are creatures in and I think I'm going to butcher the hell out of this really badly, the Terrebonne Parish. Eddie, can you correct me if I'm saying that correctly?
I think you're saying it right.
Okay. That is the spirit of a child that's been reincarnated as a beast, but it's actually been reincarnated as an alligator that lives in the bayou. Stories of its origin vary. But some say it's the spirit. It's a spirit, while others claim that it's still the child that was raised by the alligators, and now it is in the flesh of an alligator that is in the Louisiana bayou.
Which also leads me back to his albino alligator,
Yeah.
And no, because in Louisiana, there
True.
Superstitions about the white ghostly alligator in the swamps.
Well, we're going to get into that. That's why I need to bring Brian Love on here.
Okay, and then hold on. And then the second one is called the grunge, which I think I'm pronouncing wrong. Grunge.
That's a rock band, isn't it?
Is the what?
That's it. Rock band.
Rock band, the grunge.
Well, it's not grunge. It's grunch, like Grinch, but not Grinch. It's like grunch.
Grunch.
It's really interesting. Yeah. So the legend says, this is where it gets really twisted. Again, this is written online just so everybody is aware. Oh, buddy. So it says, legend says a group of albino dwarves isolated themselves from society in the woods just outside of New Orleans. After years of inbreeding, their appearance became less and less human-like, resulting in what people now call the grunge. According to reports, this Louisiana monster looks human, except for his sharp teeth, goat legs, and many anomalies.
Sounds like you, bud.
He hides in the tall grass near Grunge Road in New Orleans, Louisiana, waiting to prey on teens who park there. We can only hope Ruston, Louisiana never decides to build a Grunge Road, apparently is what it says on there. So those are two like really deep legends from like the Bayou, Louisiana area. And then of course there's the other one where so like these two guys married these sisters and murdered them and chopped their bodies up and put them in trunks and put them up in the attic. And the one guy worked with the butcher shop, and it was kind of like his story in Louisiana was very similar to Sweeney Todd's. He ended up murdering his wife and putting her meat in all the food. And then he was caught when somebody came to eat the meat, and her wedding band was in this person's mouth. And they discovered that they had been eating human. And so then he was caught. But according to the research I did online, which anybody can go read this, it is out there, that the one guy ended up working there. And the gentleman, I guess, thought that there was like an affair going on. So it got really twisted. The one guy got away. The one brother guy got away, but they killed these poor sisters and took the kids. And it was a whole fiasco and really crazy history. But they say that the house that those women were chopped up and put into trunks, it's still very haunted in New Orleans.
Well, we need to go, Brittany.
Well, that's a place to go. I mean, there's a lot of places like that where there's been a lot of mutilations and things of that nature in New Orleans area. So, I mean, the amount of hauntings over there just unbelievable. And so,
that's awesome.
There's some really cool stuff over there that I mean, anybody who goes to New Orleans really needs to take the vampire tour as well, too. I mean, that was a blast. I met one of the vampires over there, and it was a fascinating story and a fascinating experience. I got to meet people that would drink blood, and I mean, it was. I was just engulfed in this world of vampires, which was kind of creepy but cool at the same time. But
I love it.
I actually got bit by accident, and that was not good. But yeah, so it was pretty cool. I didn't turn into anything.
Man, you just bummed me out. I was kind of hoping you did.
I was like, oh, are you living forever now? What's that?
He's gonna be forever, man. He's really 600 years old.
Yeah, that was back in 1542 when that happened.
Yeah, can you imagine? That would be so awesome. And listen, everybody's like, "Oh, I'd be a werewolf." No way, I'd be a vampire. Or a vampire every day, dude. Hands down.
Nah, I got to be a werewolf. Man, if this thing's real, or if I find one of these dogmen, maybe I'll get bit and be able to turn into one of these cool things.
That would be pretty cool, though. I guess that would be pretty awesome. I don't know. I think I'd want to be a vampire with a daywalker ring.
But if that's the case, though, do not feed me dog food, and if you do, make sure it's moist.
Oh my God!
I don't like that dry shit.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yep. Grain free.
Oh my God. Organic.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
I'll probably end up over there with all your other animals. So just so you know, Troy.
I'll come visit you, Eddie. I'll be like, "How's Eddie doing today?"
Oh, he's doing great. You should see him. He's doing awesome. That's Slash. That's a
dry dog food.
Dry dog food or
he got a treat today.
Bad children. That was Slash, and he is a rough lemur. But an interesting story about lemurs is lemur means ghosts.
Oh, really?
So if you look up ringtail lemurs and what that is, look it up right now. What is the ringtail lemurs and what does that mean, Brittany? Look it up since you have access to jump on. So they believe that they were the spirits of, and some, there's a couple different conflicting stories. Some where they were evil spirits, or they were the spirits of their loved ones watching from the trees. Because ringtail lemurs, I have ringtails too. Ringtails, they look like skulls from a distance when they sit back. They have the little black around the eyes and the long face. They're the ones that have the big long ringtails on them. But those are the ones that are called. But lemurs it's like a spirit, which I find interesting because lemurs are prosimians, so they're very, very old world primate, and we're closely related to that. To the old world primates versus.
Ooh, are you ready? I found it.
Okay, that's what
I'm like the Googler tonight. Listen to me.
Well, just listen. This is true now. It's true. Talk about it.
So this name comes from the Latin word lemurs, meaning ghosts. In Roman legend, lemurs were the spirits of people left unburied who returned by night from the dead to haunt the living.
So when they would see those lemurs, they were trying to take them out of the trees.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There you go. No, you're right. That's it. That's what I was going to say. So they were scared of them. We do a lot of work on the Native American land. Jimmy and I can't even bring owls or snakes on there. Owls are like a no, and I have a huge owl. I have a huge eagle owl, and he's just when you take him out, he's a showstopper, man. Like everybody loves the owl, but they're like, no, you can't come. I'm like, okay, man, it's all good, because of their deity, because of their God they worship. That's something. When an owl comes, is to take the spirit to the underworld.
Yeah, I had a bark.
It's just a bird that wants to eat. Yeah, there you go.
And he was really cool, but I actually nursed him back up. He got stuck in a fence and had to cut the fence off. And we had him for probably about 2-3 months. But he was great. He was awesome. He still hangs around. He comes around the house every once in a while.
Oh, but good. You took care of him.
And then I also had a pet raccoon for a while, he was a mess. I thought
Jimmy's wife's got one too.
Huh?
Yeah.
I said Jimmy, who's one of our friends, Jimmy Riffle, his wife, they have one now too. They have one at the Hive Raccoon.
It was great for a a little bit.
And then it got to be not.
Yeah.
For those of you watching, Eddie is in Texas, folks. Eddie is in Texas. So you can't just run out and grab a barred owl and keep it as a pet in Florida. You know that's illegal.
No, well, I had a approval from the game warden to.
That's what I'm saying. But people are like, "Oh man, it's cool. I'm gonna go get me an owl now."
Yeah, no, it's.
I have an eagle owl from Europe. Mine's from Europe. It's a Harry Potter owl. Just to be clear, folks, it's the Harry Potter owl. But yeah, that's pretty awesome that you did that, and I think that's really cool. But yeah, that's. I mean, but there's so many things you can't have and do. Like people are just scared of things. I mean, it's just. Because it was related, I think, so the term is ophidiophobia when you're scared of snakes. That's the term, ophidiophobia. And, that's like a taught behavior almost, because you wouldn't be scared of snake, like a lizard and a snake. If you're like a child and you're looking at, say, like a tegu lizard or a lizard, it's got arms on it, and you put a snake of equal size. It's still a reptile. It's scaly. Neither one is slimy. So why would you well, this one has legs, so you don't have to be scared of it because he can scratch you. I never understood that. So when people see snakes, they're like, oh my God, that's the sign of the devil. Because, according to the Bible, right? I guess that's the only reptile that was around when they were fucking writing the damn thing.
Exactly.
So they picked the snake. The snake said I should eat this and I'm going to know everything and shit. Okay.
But, the crazy thing is that, a lot of these phobias that people have, it's, from lack of understanding, I think, more than anything. Or maybe they had a bad experience with one at one time when they were small. But I don't think there's any phobias as far as animals go that people can't initially just get over, with some help or some practice or, learning about the animal.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. We can't, though.
And over here, I mean, like the owl is very superstitious here in Texas. You ever heard of La Chusa?
Absolutely. That's why I couldn't when I was in Texas. So we did the rodeo, the San Antonio rodeo.
Yeah, they were there.
Oh, La Chusa, whoa! And I'm like, no, he's all right, man. He just wants a snack. He don't care about you. He don't want your.
Yeah, like there. We actually did an investigation in this place where we had a Santeria, and we wanted to see if there was any more activity in a Santeria place or Santeria than say your normal haunted house, per se.
Yeah.
When you walk in, the lady there, she had an owl in a cage. And my first thought was, I know she doesn't have a license or anything to have this owl. That was my first thought. So
Exactly.
I was like, you got a barn owl in here. And it was just a barn owl. She goes, no, it's not the barn owl. I was like, what is it? She goes, La Chusa. I was like, that's not La Chusa. It's an owl, you know? And I was like, and it looks like it needs to eat because it looked like it was starving, honestly.
You know, they use the lechusa though. The barn owl is the face they use in all the lechusa myth.
Mm-hmm.
And the Mexicans there had talked to me and said, "Nah, man, it's like America's boogeyman." The grandmas used to say that, so the kids would get home and I'll stay out at night.
Yeah.
So and a barn owl screams. Have you ever heard a barn owl scream?
Oh God, yeah.
Your hair will stand up. You'll faint. You're like, I'm done.
Yeah, screech owls. If you ever heard a screech owl over here, you think your time is come and gone.
Yeah,
Yep.
You think it's a banshee. That's what it sounds.
I'm serious, man.
Like.
And when a barn owl lets it go, I swear you just lay down. Just pretend you're dead, man, because it's loud. It scare you.
But yeah, they had the Santerias there. It was Santa Muerte, the Saint of the Dead. I mean, it was a crazy investigation over there on that one.
I mean, that's pretty awesome.
But the funny thing is that, check this out. She told me, because her and I spoke, we were talking in Spanish, you know, for about maybe 20, 30 minutes before we start the investigation. And she told me that one of my team members were going to be hurt before the investigation was over. And I was like, which one? I was like, who's going to be hurt? She goes, it's one that has a bad back, but he's going to be hurt before the night's over. And I thought, that's weird. Well, I didn't tell anybody this. And this is just a conversation between her and I. And she goes, just watch. And I was like, okay. So we were doing our investigation. Everything was going good. And Manuel, who's one of the, he was one of the ones that helped us unload. He's a great big dude. He probably weighed about 400 or 500 pounds. And he was sitting there on the bus. And he'd already got done unloading everything. And he was sitting there as I was walking by. And he says, do you have your knife with you? I was like, yeah. So I pulled it out and I had one of those cold steel triple actions, you know, which is like a dagger, you know, dual edge. And I flicked it out, opened it, and handed it to him, thinking he needed it for something. For whatever reason, he took that knife and drove it all the way up to the handle into his leg. And I'm sitting there looking at him, and my knife's, you know, buried in his leg. And I'm looking at him going, you didn't really just do that. And he goes, remember I was telling you that I was having problems a while back with my back and I don't have feeling in my leg? And I thought, holy shit. And I was like, yeah. He goes, I didn't even feel that. And I was looking at him going, okay, so he was the one with the bad back and now he's hurt. And so I had to get our medic of the team. I said, Patrick, I said, get over here. I said, get that knife out of his leg. I said, get him off the bus. I said, I want him gone into the hospital. I was like, that's it. And he went. And as I walked out of the bus, the lady was standing there at the door and she looked at me and she just kind of nodded. And I just looked at her. I was like, yeah, you were right.
So let me twist that for a minute, man. Let's have some fun with that because, you know, we're getting close to the edge and I want to pick your brain on this too. So in essence we talked about now earlier in the show, we talked about the laws of attraction and you can make your own thing if you want to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So was what she did to you like a forced consciousness where she's going to tell you something because she knows something to you and then you had so much faith in it that you brought it to life yourself? So it really happened because she channeled something through you and then he just stuck it in his leg because you're like, dang, but you didn't know. Like, did she force you to do something?
When she told me that, I kind of laughed it off.
Right. Okay.
I wasn't real big into Santarias and curanderas and things of that nature. So I was like, yeah, okay. You know, she told me this, you know, and so I just thought I'm just going to put it in the back of my mind. And if something happens, I'll know. And if it doesn't, you know, she's full of shit. Well, you know, that didn't even cross my mind when I was walking through the bus fixing to walk out and he asked for my knife. That didn't even come close to crossing my mind. And the next thing I know, I'm looking at him and just the handle of my knife sticking out of his leg. And I'm looking at him going, this is a double-edged knife. I mean, you got arteries and shit. You could bleed to death right here.
Right.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's crazy to me, man.
Wow.
That's see, and that's what I'm saying. There's so many things that people do stuff and channel those types of bad energies, and obviously she knew something was going to happen. So what I'm saying is, someone tell her that, or did she just make it happen because she wanted to mess with you?
Well, that's just it. And see, and I didn't tell anybody. No one was there to hear.
Right.
And then we were talking Spanish to boot, and I don't think there was anybody on my team at the time that even spoke Spanish other than me.
Right. Okay, that's awesome.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I would be confused. I'd be like, wow, man, that's
So, and I've always been under the impression that these people tell you shit, just to kind of, get you to pay up. But, and that's what, I kind of was thinking she was doing when she told me this. And I was like, ain't nothing going to happen. I was like, whatever. And we went ahead and we're doing our investigation. And, you got these statues of these saints, which the Santa Muerte looks like the Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
Right.
All over the place.
Yeah.
And a lot of the heavy duty drug cartel around here use the Santa Muerte as protection from law enforcement. They pay up and pay up and pay up.
I was going to tell you, Brittany, Texas is really big. It's really big in that type. He's not
right.
He's so dead accurate. I learned that going to Texas a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I'm going next week. It's just so that's deep there. I mean,
yeah.
That whole like
Santa Muerte on and anybody's stuff, they're probably cartel or dealing.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're very into that. They believe that 100% is protecting
with all their heart.
It's not like we do it. They believe 100%, like what you're doing.
So before I left, after that happened, before I left, I made an offer into the Santa Muerte, for protection to keep us all safe. I was like, it can't hurt.
No,
Right.
I think that's just really awesome, man.
But it's cool too, though, because you're like, to see that they respect it so much and they have that much passion into it and to believe it that strongly. And then, to have the experience, of course, that you had, but then obviously to also show your respect, I think too, it says a lot.
But for her to be that accurate, to not only say that one of my team members was going to be hurt, but it was the one
with the bad back.
And he was the one with the bad back that was complaining that, he had a pinched nerve and he couldn't feel his legs.
God.
And so he stabbed himself in the leg to prove it.
Oh God, that's unbelievable. And then you're sitting there like, that's my knife.
Yeah. And I'm looking at it going, it's
God.
not really buried all the way up to the handle. This is some kind of parlor trick, and you're kind of looking at it like that did not just happen, and
I can understand.
My gosh.
I've seen people shot in the head. I've seen people stabbed in the neck. I've seen all this stuff, but to see all of a sudden your knife sticking out of somebody's leg and you're like, I've never seen it like that before, and it makes you wonder.
Yeah, like you asked me for that, man. What are you doing? Why would you just do that? Wipe my fingerprints
it's like, I hope I got witnesses that somebody saw that, because I didn't put it there. You just so everybody knows. But the thing was is that to be that accurate, that this guy, he's got the bad back, he's got the nerve endings that he can't feel his legs. He stabs himself in the leg, so now he's wounded, he's hurt, and all that came true. And then I'm walking off the bus after I tell our medic to take care of him. And she's standing there at the door and she's just looking at me. And I looked at her and I just went like that. I just nodded. And she nodded back at me, turned around and walked back in. And I thought, what the hell?
Wow.
Yeah,
what a crazy experience.
Like this, I love it. I love this kind of stuff.
That's crazy.
Because why be normal?
Yeah.
That's a great story,
normal,
man. I love it.
Normal sucks.
Yeah, believe me, I understand, and it's hard because when you deal with a normal person and my definition of normal, when I deal with my definition of normal, it's very hard because they don't really understand. They don't understand. I don't know, man. I guess I live in a different dimension, or I'm dead and I'm just having a free for all in my own world. That's all I can think.
Well, no, I get it because I can relate, because even like in the paranormal world that I lived in, I grew up believing in all that stuff and everybody made fun of me for it. And I got to a point where I was like, I don't care what you say. I believe in it and I know it's there and I don't care.
So I didn't hide it from anybody.
My life.
The funny part is that the people that used to laugh and poke fun at you before are now coming in. What do you think about this? What do you think about that?
Exactly.
Have you noticed that?
Yep. It happens to him too all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and we'll be at a restaurant and I know that he can relate to me on this. And He's had it happen. I've had it happen. And it's weird. I think once you open that up and you're confident in yourself as who you are and like, this is who I am, I think people come to you and then they want to ask you questions and then they feel it, they sense it. Because Troy's been at restaurants and people come up to him and I'm like, he's not even wearing a shirt that says, hey, I believe in this stuff. Come talk to me about it. And I've had it happen.
Always.
The crazy thing was, remember I told you I was in the police department for a long time. You know, I retired, 30 years and what have you in it. But here's the funny thing about it is that I was nicknamed Ghost Cop. And UFO Cop, Ghost Cop, those are two nicknames I had. Anything weird, like a strange call, bright light, something.
I'd be all over that.
Whatever. Yeah. They would save those calls for me. That's
awesome.
And I was the one who they sent. And there was one lady that was always having trouble with somebody that was in her attic, and she would hear bouncings and walking and things of that nature, up in her attic and this, that, and the other. They would always send me every time she'd call. And her husband had passed away. And she was, she was lonely. And I'd go over there, I'd have a cup of coffee with her and talk to her for about 15, 20 minutes, and she was fine. I'd leave. But then one time when I was over there, I heard the footsteps. I was like, that shit's real up in her attic. Okay. And so I'm thinking, I was like, wow. No shit. I thought, all this time was just, she wanted company, or she was, just lonely. And
it made my hair stand up.
So I went over there. I said, I told her, I said, can I go up and look? And she goes, yeah. So I crawl up through her attic, through her closet. I had to go in her closet and go up into her attic. And I'm going up through her attic. I'm in full uniform. I'm barely squeezing through this little square hole going into the ceiling, trying to get my gun belt and shit through, and I'm trying to squeeze through it. Finally get up in there. And I see this shadow person that moved. And I was like, wow, look out. There's a real freaking haunting going on here. And I look around and see, and then I saw from instance, I saw a glimpse of a man's face. And I was like, wow, whoa. I was like, that was an apparition. And so I came back down. I was like, and I asked her, I was like, do you happen to have a picture of your husband? She goes, yeah. She goes, I'll go get it. And she brought, and that was kind of a mistake because she brought me back a whole bunch of pictures. I mean, we went through albums and shit, but she brought me back a picture of him.
So sweet.
They were married, and one when he was older. And I mean, you look at her and the poor thing, she was like in her late 80s and she was, all hunched over and everything. But man, on her prime, she was beautiful. I mean, she looked like one of those, girls from the 40s or 50s with their hair made up, and white lipstick and all that. But it was black photo, so you couldn't really tell. But I was picturing it in my head. Beautiful lady. And her husband, when I saw the picture of him, one of the older pictures that were there, that was him that I noticed that was up there. Wow. And I told her, I was like, that's incredible. I was like, that's your husband that was up there. She goes, really? I was like, he's here to watch over you. I was like, so whenever you hear that, just talk to him. She goes, I'm going to try it. And she did, and it worked. And things went quiet, but she was able to walk around happy knowing that her husband was still there with her.
That's
incredible.
Thing,
and I'll tell you something. This was a story that I told on Paranormal 911. We went up to Canada to go help film that. And we were up in Canada filming and everything. And that was one of the stories that I was telling on Paranormal 911. And it was pretty cool. I mean,
that's really awesome.
So yeah, it was
awesome.
One of the stories where you have a haunting that actually turns out in your favor. And that's really cool. Happy. So she would call me to go over and have coffee with her after that to tell me how things are going. And she kept in contact with me for a long time until I think finally she wasn't able to take care of herself. They moved her to an assisted living house and she ended up passing away. But she was just a sweet old lady, just wonderful,
That's really awesome, man. And now they're making noise in that attic together.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to go back out there and the other person's like, there's something going on up here.
Yep.
They're having fun. Just leave them be.
Yeah, they're dancing.
So yeah, that was one of those stories that turned out real well.
Yeah, that
but
was
it's
really
cool
awesome.
though, because I am sure that there are multiple people that like had come there and were like, oh, whatever, she's just crazy. Let's just leave, which was awful for her. And then here you are who took the time. You actually took the time with her. And in your head, you're going, she just needs, some type of someone to talk to. She's all alone. But then you heard it. And it was like, wait a minute, let me take the initiative here to see what's going on. And then You validated it for her. It wasn't just for you either. It was for her.
It was for her
To be like, finally, somebody heard it too.
The crazy part is that, I think I'd probably been there 3 or 4 times, before. We had coffee and I talked to her, just basically to spend time, and everything went great. And it was just a, good time talking with her. And she'd tell me old stories of her and her husband and this, that, and the other. And then that last time when I was over there, I heard that noise and I thought, and this shit's real. There really is noise going on up there. It's not in her mind. I hear it myself. And, happened to be, I investigated the paranormal. So I thought, I said, can I get up in your attic? And she goes, sure. I was like, sweet. So I said, how do you get in? She goes, I think through the closet. And I was like, okay, let me go look. So I find that little crawl space and I wedged myself up and through, and sure enough. And that's why I told her, I said, let me see a picture of your husband. And, and by the way, after that, we went through all her pictures and she had quite a life. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Really awesome. So you kind of made her day. So on that note, folks, we're on the hour now, actually a little bit over, but that was amazing. And you know what, Eddie, I definitely want to have you come back again. I like to hear some more really awesome stories, man. You just made my night. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, fuck yeah. So check out his show too. It's going to be a lot of fun going on his show as well. And I want to do Paranormal Analytical is the name of his show.
And we are going to have Troy on the show with us. So especially.
I want to.
Hey, we're going to be planning something for Halloween, and it's going to be on animal spirits, and we're going to have Troy. I think that's what we're going to end up doing. That sounds like a great idea.
I'm excited, man. I'll do the best I can. I'll bring the coolest stuff for you, for sure. Yeah, so definitely check them out at Paranormal Analytical. We love having you here, Brittany, and we love everybody coming out and supporting us on the Garage Show like you always do. Thanks for watching tonight. Remember, the comments are live. We are pre-recorded, so keep pumping in the comments, and I'll respond as soon as I see them. And I guess, everybody, you guys have a great night. And